They say no good deed goes unpunished. But what happens when that good deed saves the wrong person? What happens when the life you save belongs to a species that remembers every kindness and repays every debt? Dr. Elena Rodriguez learned the answer when she crashed on an alien world and was rescued by beings who had never seen a human before. 15 years later, when those same beings sent a desperate cry for help across the void of space, humanity faced an impossible choice: sacrifice everything to save a peaceful species, or watch an entire civilization burn. The enemy had superior numbers, better technology, and centuries of conquest behind them. Logic said humanity should stay home, stay safe, stay alive. But humanity has never been particularly logical when it comes to keeping promises. This is the story of what happened when Earth's entire fleet answered that call, and why the galaxy will never be the same. The unexpected rescue. The research vessel. Curiosity broke apart like a fragile egg against the violent atmosphere of Kepler 442b. Dr. Elena Rodriguez clutched her emergency kit as the escape pod tumbled through toxic clouds, its heat shield glowing white-hot from the brutal entry. The planet below was a nightmare of orange skies and steaming purple seas, exactly the kind of hostile world where no sane person would want to crash. Elena had volunteered for this mission because someone had to study the strange energy readings coming from this distant world. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she felt responsible for expanding humanity's understanding of alien life. Now, as her pod struck the marshy ground with bone-jarring force, she wondered if her curiosity had finally gotten her killed. The pod's systems flickered and died, leaving her in darkness. Outside, the atmosphere readings showed a cocktail of chemicals that would burn her lungs in minutes. Her environmental suit had enough power for maybe 12 hours, and the nearest human outpost was 3 star systems away. No one even knew she had crashed. Elena forced herself to stay calm. Panic would only waste precious oxygen. She activated her emergency beacon and checked her supplies. Water for 2 days, food bars for 4, and medical equipment that might keep her alive if she got injured. The planet's gravity was lighter than Earth's, which was good, but the temperature readings showed it swinging from freezing to boiling depending on the weather patterns. She sealed her helmet and stepped outside. The landscape was alien and beautiful in a terrifying way. Tall, spiral plants that looked like glass corkscrews dotted the marsh, and in the distance, she could see what appeared to be a vast purple ocean. Strange creatures with too many legs scuttled between the crystal plants, their movements creating musical chimes that echoed across the wetlands. The first sign of intelligent life came on her 3rd day. Elena had been rationing her water, eating quarter portions of her food bars, and sleeping in the wrecked pod when the temperature dropped. She was checking her suit's power levels when she saw them moving beneath the water's surface. They were unlike anything in Earth's databases. Sleek, dolphin-like creatures with 4 arms ending in delicate hands, their skin shifting colors like living rainbows. They moved through the purple water with incredible grace, and Elena realized they were watching her. When she approached the water's edge, they didn't flee. Instead, they surfaced partially, their large, intelligent eyes studying her with obvious curiosity. Elena tried basic communication protocols. She held up her hands to show she was unarmed, pointed to herself, and spoke slowly. "I am Elena, human, from Earth." She didn't expect them to understand, but their head movements suggested they were listening. One of the creatures, larger than the others with more vibrant color patterns, approached closer to shore. When it spoke, the words came as melodic sounds that her suit's computer couldn't translate. But the tone was clearly questioning, and Elena got the impression it was asking if she needed help. She pointed to her water supplies, nearly empty now, and mimed drinking. The creature's colors shifted to what Elena hoped was understanding. It disappeared beneath the surface, returning minutes later with others of its kind. What happened next challenged everything Elena thought she knew about alien behavior. The creatures worked together to bring her clean water in containers made from some kind of natural material that seemed grown rather than built. They offered her strange fruits that her suit's scanners showed were not only safe for humans but rich in nutrients she desperately needed. Captain HFY, as Elena later learned to pronounce his name, was the leader of this small group of Vithani. His people were aquatic, spending most of their time in the vast underwater cities of their homeworld's purple seas. They rarely came to the surface, and had never encountered beings like Elena before. Yet they recognized distress when they saw it. The Vithani had every reason to be afraid of Elena. She was clearly from another world, possibly dangerous, and her technology was completely unknown to them. Their peaceful culture had no concept of first contact protocols or defensive strategies. But when they saw a dying being in need, their instincts told them to help. Elena spent 6 weeks recovering among the Vithani while she waited for rescue. They couldn't communicate through language at first, but intelligence finds a way. Elena shared her knowledge of mathematics and physics, drawing diagrams in the sand. The Vithani showed her their understanding of biological engineering and environmental harmony. The Vithani civilization was ancient and sophisticated, but built around cooperation rather than conquest. Their cities were grown from living coral that filtered water and provided food. Their technology was biological, using trained creatures and engineered organisms instead of machines. They had achieved sustainable harmony with their planet's ecosystem, something humanity was still struggling to learn. HFY showed Elena wonders that took her breath away. Underwater gardens where they cultivated medicines that could heal almost any injury. Libraries stored in the genetic memory of specialized creatures who could replay historical events like living videos. Transportation pods that were actually symbiotic organisms, happy to carry Vithani passengers through the water. During those weeks, Elena came to understand that the Vithani represented something precious in the galaxy. They were proof that intelligence didn't have to be warlike or destructive. They had achieved technological advancement through cooperation with nature rather than dominance over it. Their society had no concept of war, slavery, or exploitation. When the rescue ship finally arrived, responding to Elena's emergency beacon, she was healthier than when she had crashed. The Vithani had shared their medical knowledge, healing injuries she'd carried for years. More importantly, they had given her hope for what intelligent species could become. Captain HFY accompanied Elena to the surface for her departure. Through the translation device Elena had built during her stay, he spoke words that would echo through her mind for years to come. "We helped because all life is precious, Elena of Earth. Your people must be good, to produce someone with such curiosity and kindness. Perhaps one day, we will meet again under better circumstances." Elena took his 4-fingered hand in both of hers. "If your people ever need help, any kind of help, send word to Earth. I promise you, humanity will remember what you did for me. We pay our debts." The rescue ship carried Elena back to human space, but she left part of her heart on Kepler 442b. She submitted detailed reports about the Vithani to every relevant Earth agency. She testified before the Xenological Council about their peaceful nature and advanced biotechnology. She wrote papers, gave lectures, and became humanity's foremost expert on Vithani culture. Most importantly, she ensured that the Vithani's location and nature were classified at the highest levels. She knew that there were humans who would see the Vithani's peaceful nature and advanced biotechnology as opportunities for exploitation. She made sure that wouldn't happen by keeping their existence secret from everyone except a trusted few in Earth's government. Elena rose through the ranks of Earth's diplomatic corps, eventually becoming Director of Interspecies Relations. She never forgot the debt humanity owed to a small group of aquatic beings who had risked everything to save a stranger. She kept detailed records of their technological capabilities, their culture, and their peaceful philosophy. For 15 years, Elena heard nothing from Kepler 442b. The Vithani had no faster-than-light communication, and their exploration efforts were focused on their own star system. Elena sometimes wondered if they remembered her, or if their brief encounter had faded into their racial memory like a strange dream. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning that started like any other, everything changed. The message that would transform the galaxy arrived in a burst of static and desperation, broadcast on frequencies that shouldn't have been able to reach Earth. Elena was in her office reviewing trade agreements when her aide burst through the door. "Director, you need to see this immediately. We're receiving a transmission from Kepler 442b. It's a distress call. The call for help." The transmission crackled with interference from 3 star systems worth of distance, but Elena recognized Captain HFY's voice pattern immediately. 15 years had passed since she had last heard those melodic tones, but some things remain burned into memory forever. "Elena of Earth, if you still live, if you still remember, we need your help. The Krex Dominion has found us." Elena's blood turned to ice. The Krex Dominion was one of the most feared military powers in known space. They were a militant species that had conquered dozens of worlds, enslaving or exterminating any resistance they encountered. Their technology was brutal and efficient, designed for one purpose: total domination of everything they touched. The message continued, HFY's normally calm voice strained with desperation. "They came 3 months ago, demanding we surrender our biotechnology. When we explained that our knowledge cannot be taken by force, that it requires harmony and understanding, they began destroying our cities. They seek to harvest our people, to use our bodies as living laboratories." Elena closed her eyes, feeling sick. The Krex had a reputation for that kind of horror. They didn't just conquer worlds. They consumed them, turning entire populations into resources for their war machine. The peaceful Vithani, with their biological mastery and gentle nature, would be seen as the perfect slaves for biotechnological research. We tried to hide in the deep ocean cities, but their scanners found us. They have weapons that boil our seas and shatter our coral homes. Half our population is already dead or captured. We have perhaps days before our civilization ends forever. HFY's voice broke slightly before he continued. "I know it is much to ask. You are one person, and we are far away. But you said humanity pays its debts. If that is true, if there is any chance you remember your promise, please help us. We have nowhere else to turn." The transmission ended with coordinates and technical data about Krex force deployments. Elena sat in stunned silence for several minutes before her training took over. She immediately classified the message at the highest security levels and called an emergency session of the Defense Council. The council chamber was deep beneath Geneva, designed to survive nuclear war or asteroid impact. Around the curved table sat Earth's most powerful leaders: Admiral Jackson Hayes, commander of Earth's Defense Fleet; General Morrison, head of military intelligence; Secretary Chen, civilian oversight of military operations; and President Williams himself. Elena played the transmission 3 times before anyone spoke. Finally, Admiral Hayes broke the silence. "Director Rodriguez, I understand your emotional connection to these Vithani, but we need to discuss the strategic realities here." Hayes was a career military officer, gray-haired and scarred from humanity's expansion into hostile space. He had fought in the border wars with the Nexus Coalition and survived the massacre at Centauri Station. He understood war in ways Elena hoped she never would. "The Krex Dominion controls over 40 star systems," Hayes continued. "Their fleet consists of more than 300 capital ships, each one capable of sterilizing a planet. Earth's Defense Force has 18 capital ships and perhaps 50 escort vessels. Engaging them would be suicide." General Morrison nodded grimly. "Intelligence estimates suggest we would lose any direct confrontation within hours. The Krex have been building their military for over a century. They've conquered every species they've encountered through overwhelming technological superiority." Secretary Chen leaned forward, her expression troubled. "Admiral, while I respect the tactical assessment, we need to consider the broader implications. If we ignore this crisis, what message does that send to other species? How can we claim to be a civilized galactic power if we abandon allies to genocide?" "With respect, Madam Secretary," Hayes replied, "the Vithani are not our allies. They're an isolated species we've had minimal contact with. Sacrificing humanity's future for sentimental reasons would be criminally irresponsible. Elena felt anger rising in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. Admiral, you're thinking about this wrong. This isn't about sentiment. It's about what kind of species we want to be. She activated the holographic display, showing images from her time among the Vithani. These people saved my life when they had every reason to be afraid of me. They shared their knowledge, their medicine, their food. They asked for nothing in return, except that we remember their kindness. The images showed Vithani cities in their full glory, living coral structures that pulsed with bioluminescent light, gardens that grew medicines more advanced than anything in human pharmacology, children playing in bubble streams while their parents tended to the ecosystem around them. They represent everything we claim to value about intelligent life, Elena continued. Peaceful coexistence, technological advancement through cooperation rather than conquest, harmony with their environment. If we let them die, we're saying that none of those values matter when it's inconvenient to defend them. President Williams, who had been silent throughout the discussion, finally spoke. Director Rodriguez, I need you to be completely honest with me. In your professional opinion, what are the chances of success if we intervene? Elena met his gaze steadily. Militarily? Probably less than 5%. But Mr. President, some fights are worth having even when you can't win them. Sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, not because you know you'll win, but because it's the right thing to do. Admiral Hayes shook his head. Director, with respect, this isn't a schoolyard. This is about the survival of our entire species. The Kreks have a reputation for total extermination of anyone who opposes them. If we attack their forces, they won't stop with military targets. They'll come for Earth itself. Maybe, Elena admitted. But they'll do that eventually anyway. The Kreks don't believe in peaceful coexistence. Every intelligence report says they're already eyeing human space for future expansion. At least if we fight now, we'll be fighting for something that matters. General Morrison accessed his tactical files. There might be another consideration. Our intelligence suggests that several other species are watching this situation. The Althorian Republic, the Centauri Federation, even the isolationist Keth are paying attention to how humanity responds to this crisis. Secretary Chen understood immediately. You're saying this is a test of our character as a galactic power. Exactly. If we prove we're willing to honor our commitments even at great cost, other species will see us as reliable allies. If we abandon the Vithani to save ourselves, no one will ever trust us again. President Williams stood and walked to the chamber's viewing window, looking out at the city lights of Geneva far above. Admiral Hayes, what would you need to mount an effective rescue operation? Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Everything, sir. Every ship we have, every Marine, every piece of advanced technology we've developed in the last decade. And even then, we'd be depending on luck and the hope that the Kreks underestimate us. How long to prepare? 3 weeks minimum. We'd need to retrofit our ships with the new kinetic weapons, coordinate with our colonial militias, and plan an approach route that keeps us hidden until the last possible moment. Elena felt hope rising in her chest. Mr. President, if we're really going to do this, I need to be part of the fleet. I'm the only human who truly understands Vithani culture and technology. If we're going to save them, we'll need their cooperation. President Williams turned back to the group. Ladies and gentlemen, I've made my decision. Admiral Hayes, you have your authorization. Prepare the fleet for immediate deployment. Director Rodriguez, you'll accompany the expedition as civilian liaison and cultural expert. Hayes saluted crisply. Understood, sir. I pray we're making the right choice. So do I, Admiral. But sometimes the right choice is also the hardest one. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity that transformed human space into a massive military preparation zone. Every shipyard worked around the clock, installing new weapon systems and upgrading defensive capabilities. Colonial militias contributed their best ships and crews to the cause. Scientists worked frantically to develop new technologies that might give humanity an edge against superior Krex forces. Elena spent those weeks briefing military commanders about Vithani capabilities and limitations. She worked with tactical teams to develop strategies that took into account the aquatic nature of Vithani civilization. Most importantly, she prepared messages in the Vithani language, hoping to coordinate with any survivors they might find. Admiral Hayes proved to be a brilliant strategist despite his initial reluctance. He developed a battle plan that relied on humanity's greatest strengths: adaptability, creativity, and sheer stubborn determination. Human forces would attack in small, fast groups rather than large formations. They would use guerrilla tactics and hit-and-run strategies to confuse and frustrate the Krex military machine. The day of departure arrived with little fanfare. 18 capital ships and their escort fleets gathered at the edge of Earth's solar system, representing humanity's entire military capability. Elena stood on the bridge of the flagship Determination, watching Earth shrink to a blue dot behind them. Admiral Hayes joined her at the viewing port. "Director, I want you to know that I hope you're right about this. If we survive the next few days, it'll be because your friends down there are worth dying for." Elena nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "Admiral, they saved one human when they had no reason to. Now 18,000 humans are risking everything to save them. I'd say that's a pretty good return on investment." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, beginning the journey to Kepler 442b. Elena spent the transit time in prayer, meditation, and desperate hope that they wouldn't arrive too late to matter. Honor and victory. The Krex Dominion fleet hung above Kepler 442b like a swarm of mechanical wasps, their black ships bristling with weapons designed for planetary bombardment. From the bridge of the Determination, Elena watched in horror as energy beams lanced down from orbit, boiling sections of the purple ocean and sending massive steam clouds into the toxic atmosphere. "Tactical assessment," Admiral Hayes ordered, his voice steady despite the overwhelming odds they faced. Lieutenant Commander Park, the fleet's intelligence officer, activated the holographic display. Confirmed Krex forces, 47 capital ships, approximately 120 escort vessels. They're using standard siege formation, maintaining orbital bombardment, while their ground forces extract survivors from underwater cities. Elena felt sick. The Krex weren't just destroying the Vithani, they were harvesting them like crops. "Admiral, we need to move fast. Every minute we delay, more of them die." Hayes nodded grimly. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. Execute Operation Deep Current. Remember, we're not here to win a conventional battle. We're here to cause enough chaos to allow evacuation and rescue operations." The human fleet split into 6 smaller groups, each approaching the planet from different vectors. Instead of the massive ship formations favored by most galactic militaries, humanity employed swarm tactics learned from Earth's oceanic warfare. Small, fast groups would strike multiple targets simultaneously, forcing the Krex to divide their attention. Elena monitored the Vithani communication channels, hoping to make contact with survivors. The frequencies were mostly static, but occasionally she caught fragments of desperate transmissions from the underwater cities. "HFY, if you can hear this, we're here. Humanity has come to help." The first engagement began when Commander Silva's strike group hit a Krex supply convoy on the outer edge of the system. The human ships, equipped with new kinetic weapons that bypassed most energy shields, tore through the convoy's escorts before the larger Krex vessels could respond. It was a small victory, but it announced humanity's arrival in spectacular fashion. The Krex response was swift and brutal. Their main fleet began moving to intercept the human forces, abandoning their orbital bombardment pattern to deal with this unexpected threat. It was exactly what Hayes had hoped for. Anything that stopped them from killing Vithani civilians was a win. Elena finally made contact with Captain HFY during the second hour of battle. His transmission was weak, coming from deep beneath the planet's ocean surface. "Elena, you came. We did not dare to hope." "Where are you?" Elena asked, working frantically to trace the signal. "We're here to get you out." The sunken gardens, our deepest city. Perhaps 3,000 survivors remain. The Krex cannot reach us here, but their bombardment is collapsing the thermal vents that power our city. We have maybe hours before our life support fails. Elena turned to Admiral Hayes. Sir, I need a transport down to the surface. The main survivor group is in an underwater city that our ships can't reach. Hayes was coordinating 3 separate battle groups while Krex forces tried to surround them. Rodriguez, I can't spare ships for surface operations right now. We're barely keeping them off us as it is. Then give me a shuttle and 2 Marines. I'll go down alone if I have to. Before Hayes could respond, something unexpected happened. The ocean beneath the Krex fleet began to glow with bioluminescent patterns that were visible even from orbit. The water itself seemed to be moving with purpose, creating spiral currents that grew larger and more intense by the minute. What the hell is that? Lieutenant Commander Park asked, staring at the sensor readings. Elena's eyes widened as she recognized the patterns. It's the Vithani. They're not just hiding down there. They're fighting back. The ocean erupted. Massive creatures rose from the depths, beings that were part biological and part technological, living ships bred and trained by Vithani biotechnology. They moved through the water with incredible speed, then launched themselves into the vacuum of space like living missiles. The Krex had never encountered anything like it. Their sensors couldn't lock onto targets that registered as both biological and mechanical. Their weapons, designed to penetrate armor and shields, proved far less effective against creatures that could heal battle damage in real time. But the most shocking development came when Elena established communication with one of the massive creatures. Through the translation protocols she'd developed, she heard a familiar voice. Elena of Earth, this is HFY. We apologize for the deception, but we did not reveal our full capabilities when you visited us before. Admiral Hayes stared at the tactical display showing dozens of kilometer-long biological ships engaging Krex forces. Director, your friends have been holding out on us. Elena was equally stunned. HFY, these creatures. How long have you had them? For millennia, Elena. They are our partners, not our weapons. We grow together, live together, fight together when we must. We did not show you before because we hoped never to need them. The battle's momentum shifted dramatically. The Vithani bioships could regenerate damage, operate in both water and vacuum, and coordinate their attacks with an efficiency that no mechanical fleet could match. But they were still vastly outnumbered, and the Krex were adapting to this new threat. Elena made a decision that would have gotten her court-martialed under normal circumstances. All human vessels, coordinate your attacks with the Vithani bioships. Admiral, trust me on this. Hayes looked at her for a moment, then nodded. You heard the director. All ships, follow the lead of those biological vessels. Try to keep up. What followed was unlike any battle in recorded history. Human ships and Vithani bioships fought side by side, each species compensating for the other's weaknesses. Human technology provided precise long-range fire support, while Vithani creatures used their speed and regeneration to engage in close combat that would destroy conventional vessels. Elena found herself serving as the primary communication link between the two fleets, translating tactical concepts between species that had evolved completely different approaches to warfare. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and terrifying all at the same time. The turning point came when Captain HFY, commanding the largest of the bioships, managed to get close enough to the Krex flagship to attempt something unprecedented. Instead of attacking the enemy vessel, his creature began to merge with it, using Vithani biotechnology to take control of the ship's systems from within. The Krex crew found their own vessel turning against them, as Vithani biological interfaces overwrote the ship's command protocols. Weapons that had been firing at human and Vithani forces suddenly began targeting other Krex vessels. The confusion and panic that followed broke the back of the Krex formation. Admiral Hayes seized the moment. All ships, full assault on the broken formations. Don't give them time to regroup. The combined human Vithani fleet pressed their advantage mercilessly. Krex vessels, caught between coordinated attacks and the confusion caused by their compromised flagship, began retreating in disorder. Some ships attempted to continue the planetary bombardment, but found themselves targeted by the full force of both fleets. The battle raged for 6 more hours before the surviving Krex forces finally abandoned the system. They left behind nearly half their fleet, destroyed or captured by an enemy they had never imagined possible. The remaining ships fled toward Krex space, carrying word of their defeat back to the Dominion leadership. Elena stood on the bridge of the Determination, watching the last Krex vessels disappear into faster-than-light travel. Around the planet, human ships and Vithani bioships moved in formation, beginning rescue operations for the survivors in the underwater cities. Admiral Hayes approached her, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and amazement. "Director, I owe you an apology. When you said these people were worth fighting for, I thought you were being sentimental. I had no idea they were this." Elena smiled, thinking of the gentle beings who had saved her life 15 years ago. "Admiral, the Vithani taught me something important during my time with them. True strength isn't about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. It's about knowing who you are and what you're willing to fight for." Captain HFY's bioship approached the human flagship, its bioluminescent patterns flashing in what Elena recognized as expressions of gratitude and joy. Through the communication link, his voice carried the warmth she remembered from their first meeting. "Elena of Earth, humanity has honored its debt beyond all measure. But more than that, you have shown us that intelligence and courage can triumph over brutality and hatred. The Vithani will remember this day for all the generations to come." The rescue operations took 3 days. Human and Vithani ships worked together to evacuate damaged underwater cities and relocate survivors to safer locations. The cooperation between the two species proved so effective that both sides began discussing permanent alliance agreements. Elena spent those days moving between human ships and Vithani biovessels, serving as interpreter and cultural liaison. She watched human engineers marvel at Vithani biotechnology, while Vithani scientists studied human mechanical systems with equal fascination. The exchange of knowledge was already beginning to benefit both civilizations. On the journey back to human space, Elena stood in the Determination's observation lounge, watching the stars and thinking about how much had changed. The fleet returning to Earth was very different from the one that had left. Half the ships now carried Vithani passengers, scientists, engineers, and cultural ambassadors who would help establish the first formal alliance between their peoples. Admiral Hayes joined her at the viewing port. "The intelligence reports are already coming in, Director. Word of our victory is spreading through the galaxy faster than our ships can travel. 17 different species have requested meetings with Earth diplomatic missions. The Althorian Republic wants to discuss mutual defense agreements. Even the Keth are talking about opening trade relations." Elena nodded. "The galaxy is watching us, Admiral. They want to see if humanity is the kind of species that keeps its promises, even when it costs us everything." "And what have they learned?" Elena smiled, thinking of a young xenobiologist who had once crashed on an alien world and been saved by strangers who owed her nothing. That humanity pays its debts, no matter how long it takes or how much it costs, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the course of history. The Human-Vithani alliance that emerged from the Battle of Kepler 442b became the foundation for a new era of galactic politics. Other species, impressed by humanity's willingness to risk everything for their principles, began seeking Earth as a mediator for conflicts and a leader in interspecies cooperation. The Krex Dominion, meanwhile, never recovered from the shock of their defeat. The loss of half their fleet to supposedly primitive enemies caused internal rebellions throughout their empire. Within 5 years, the Dominion had collapsed, and their former slave worlds were free to determine their own destinies. Elena Rodriguez was appointed as Earth's first galactic ambassador, a position created specifically to manage humanity's growing influence among the stars. She spent her remaining years working to build bridges between species, always remembering the lesson she had learned from the Vithani, that true civilization is measured not by the power to destroy, but by the wisdom to preserve and protect. The debt was paid, but the friendship that grew from it would endure for millennia. In the end, The greatest victory was not defeating the Kreks, but proving that in a galaxy often driven by fear and hatred, kindness and courage could still light the way to a better future.